It's a feat that hasn't been repeated by a French player in 4 decades. It's been exactly 40 years since Yannick Noah thrilled the crowds at Roland Garros and audiences right across France when he beat Mats Wilander in the final of the French Open. He became the first home champion in the Open era. Well, our guest for Perspective has made a documentary about that day that lives on in the memories of many people here in France. Let's watch a little snippet of it.
Great serve, came to the net. He was so big at the net.
He had a big serve, but I also like to attack his backhand with the serve. He didn't like that.
Yannick is a very talented guy.
Very electric on the tennis court.
Very sexy.
Very likable. Everybody liked Yannick.
Yannick Noah s'est précipité sur le central pour embrasser son fils.
A moment of French sporting history there. Well, the director of that documentary, NOAD, joins me now. Benjamin Rassat, thank you so much for coming in to us here on the programme this morning. So we saw just a little bit of, we got a little flavour of that French Open from 40 years ago now. Tell us, does it still resonate, that moment, with audiences here in France?
You used the good verb, resonate. Yeah, I think that Yannick, at that time, resonates live. The newspaper L'Equipe, the cover of the newspaper L'Equipe was 50 millions of Noah. And I think that we are 40 years after that, and it's still the same thing. It's something really important in the memory of all the French. It's like you remember where you were at that moment. I've received a lot of messages since the release of this movie on YouTube. People saying, I was there, I cried. It's one of the most important moments in my life. So yes, of course, it has a big, I would say, big impact on France. On France as a public, as people who never won anything during like 50 years. He was the first sportsman, French sportsman, and not only French, Cameroonese and French, that won something important.
Do you remember where you were at that
Yeah,
moment?
I was there in the stadium. I was 11, I was in the stadium. And I remember perfectly that he has made that. I wouldn't say that he has made that alone, because everyone was cheering for him. But he was alone to win. It was complicated to win. And it was something that has a big impact on French sports after that. As I would say a coach, he won a lot of things. He is like Didier Deschamps. He is the big winner of French sports.
And that moment at the very end where the crowd invaded the court is something we would never see now. Just give us a flavour of the atmosphere at that moment.
Yeah, he's at home, he's in front of his family. I think that there is this thing of the crowd, yes, of course, invading the court, and that couldn't happen today. And it's a pity that couldn't happen, because I think that if a French win next year or in the next 10 years, I think something like that can happen. But it was also the relation to the parents, the relation to this family that enters in our I would say in our TV, the family of Yannick Noah, and what he has made after with his sons, daughters. It was really important, the family. It was the tribe, Noah.
Yeah, and you feature, we can see his mother in the crowd cheering along, and she was obviously feeling very tense, very excited towards the end. But the documentary itself, it brings us back to those matches from the perspective of the 7 men who played against Yannick Noah. And it's quite fascinating to hear how they remember. Sometimes they don't remember too well what actually happened. So just talk to us about putting that together and why it was important to get their perspectives.
Yeah, tennis is a special sport. You play against somebody. It's like boxing with rackets. And I would say that in this sport, who's played like a mirror, you play against somebody who tried to, in French we say, to cook his ball. You cook your ball. You're gonna try to annoy you with another ball. I'm gonna play things that you don't like to play. And this thing of seeing the 7 opponents was really important for me. They are the experts of the game. They know him perfectly, professionally, personally. They have made a lot of adventures on and off the court. And I thought that it was the best way to make a portrait of Yannick. At the end, you saw that Yannick is thanking them with a really intimate, personal message. He knows that they made him, he made them. They have been no-had in a way. And what does it mean? That means that even if he won once, the way he shared his victory, the way he celebrated his victory, making a party was incredible. Everyone talks about this party 40 years after that. It's a way to say, you have won, we have won.
And Noah himself, he captained the French team. He went on, he did have other successes. He was world number 3 at one point. But why have there been so few French successes in tennis, and particularly here in France at the French Open?
Because it's very difficult to win any Grand Slam. It's very difficult. Since 20 years, you have 3 guys who won everything. And 15 days winning against 7 people is always complicated. More and more with the modern tennis. But for the people who wants to see that on YouTube, you're gonna see 3 episodes and look at the behavior of Yannick. Look at the way he's in a mission. He's in a mission. In his eyes, even if you don't know anything about tennis, you just look at the body language, he's in a mission. It's clear.
And we heard from him at the end of the documentary as well. He briefly, as you say, thanks those who took part in the making of the documentary. But how did he respond, and what was his response to you when you wanted to make this documentary about him and his life?
I think he has been really moved to hear his 7 opponents. I've made some interview like 6 hours, 7 hours to show them all the matches. That means that Anders Jarid saw his match and the 6th other match. So I would say it's a content. It's an analysis of the codes, of technical points, of what happened technically. And from the analysis of the techniques, you can, I think, you can build a kind of humanity. They are human beings, of course, but it has to pass through the techniques to how they play. And how they play means how they are. How they are means what the personality that they have built. All the more we are 40 years after that. They are older. When time is passing, even your biggest rival, you show respect for him. Ivan Lendl, for example, was the big enemy, but it's over. Today it's over. I saw in both interviews that they want to share their emotion for each other. And for me, that is the most important. They respect them a lot.
And it was fascinating to see that, just how the different players as well responded and remembered those events from 40 years ago. We'll have to leave it there, unfortunately, but it's a great documentary, NOAD, as it's called in English. Benjamin Rassat, director, thank you so much for joining us here on France 24.
My pleasure.